Thank you, each and every one of you, for
I
joining
just
us.
say, got it, don't I?
Yeah, you've got it.
Got it.
And just want to welcome you to this amazing speaker series where we have actually an amazing reverend that's going to share with us about the spiritual dimensions of the African American church. We are so grateful to Reverend Ronnie Grigsby. And I am Janet Childs, Reverend Janet Childs from UCM's Speaker Series. And every month we have incredibly wise and wonderful speakers discuss spiritual and emotional dynamics and dimensions that fulfill our lives and give us ways to move forward into the world. Our wonderful Reverend Ronnie Grigsby is not only an amazing soloist and musician, he is an incredible reverend with the UCM, Universal Church of the Master program. He has done incredible work with ministry out in our community and out in our world. He has come from an amazing lifetime of experiences in the military and in different jobs that he has provided, where he has provided that caring support to other people. And we just honor Ronnie for his amazing gifts of spiritual awareness and also of historical understanding. I can't think of anybody more qualified, other than a couple of other folks I see on this wonderful Zoom, that could speak to the dimensions of the Black church. And we are so honored that each and every one of you are here. And if you are hearing this recording, we hope that you will spread the word of this recording and of the Universal Church of the Master. As is our tradition on our spiritual speakers series, as we often call them, is we have a tradition of lighting the candle. And there is a candle. Ronnie is a favorite of red. Red is one of his favorite colors. So we've got a heart here, an origami heart in honor of Ronnie. And we light this candle to symbolize the love and the light and the healing that we can bring to and for each other. And there is such power in lighting the light because it reminds us, as many of you have in your ministries over the years, reminded us of the power of the light. And so we are going to light this up right now. And as you see this flame lit, know that you make a powerful difference in our world just by being in it and shining your light. So Reverend Ronnie Grigsby, I hand it over to you with great honor and great humility and great joy.
Thank you. It's great pleasure and honor that I get to speak with you. The African American Church has different things that we do. One of the things that we do is honor, in the beginning of our talk, honor the people that are in the room. First of all, I'd like to honor our president, the Reverend Corey Gott, honor the pastor in the room, the Reverend Dottie Boone, Reverend Dr. Janet Childs, Reverend Dr. Tom Gary, and everyone that I'm able to talk to. I'm very, very excited to be able to talk about this because of the political things that are going on in our country and in our world. We have to know where we're coming from to get to where we're going. And I've always said that. I believe Janet and Corey probably have heard me say that 100 times. But it's important for us to know tradition. What I just did, that opening that I just did, was an opening that you will hear in any African American church. As a matter of fact, when the president or the Pope or any person that holds that title, when they enter a room everyone stands. It's as if the President of the United States himself walked into the room. That's the way that our church does that. A little history. My mother was a Pentecostal minister, and my father was a Baptist deacon. So if I can do so if I'm going to do anything, it seems like I'm going to do it in the church. In my family, one of my nephews is a bishop in the church that in the organization that he and my brother that he and my brothers belong to, which is the African American Apostolic Church. As a matter of fact, one of my brothers and my nephew both pastor two different churches across town from each other in the same city of Fresno. I became a singer because I think that it was in my aura. I think when I was born, that this is what I was born to do. And until I breathe my last breath, that's what I think that I'm going to do, and give all the glory and honor to Spirit from which it comes. Mom and dad separated and divorced when I was 3 years old. I never lived with my dad, I lived with my mother. But my mother taught us to never say anything bad about my father, never say anything bad about anyone. My mother went to her grave, and I'm pretty sure that she had some pretty interesting ideas, but she never shared them. And she went to her grave. The only person that I know that left this plane with a smile on her face. And knowing where she was going in her spirit, and believing that the heaven that she talked about, that was her next home. As we know, the African American community is probably one of the only communities that came here and weren't welcome. As a matter of fact, the preamble of the United States says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union and establish justice and secure the domestic tranquility," all of that was headed toward freedom. My people came here in chains. So we were the only people that were welcomed here because we did other people's hard work. We had to learn a language that was not our own. The spirituality that we had in Africa was not the spirituality that was welcomed in this country. So we had to fit into everybody else's spirituality. That's an interesting point, because if you've ever been to an African American church, you will know that it is nothing like the Caucasian American church. It is nothing like any church that you would ever go to. As a matter of fact, there's dancing in the church that I came from. There's shouting in the church that I came from. There are amens coming from the people in the church that I come from. It's very lively. So I left that church because of the fact of who I was and not being accepted there, not being welcomed there. And I was looking for a place to go to church. So I found a church that closed on me. And I looked around for a while, and one Sunday afternoon, the Reverend Dottie Boone called me and asked me where did I want to go to church, or was I going to church? And I told her no, I wasn't. And she said, "Well, why don't you come and visit with me one Sunday? I won't bother you. I won't make you sing." And I agreed to go to church. So I went to church and started meeting you wonderful people. And At the end of the service, Dottie says, Ronnie Grigsby's here. Would you come up and sing for me? So that just kind of blew that.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, I met Reverend Dr. Janet Childs one Sunday night. And we just, the Sunday that I met the Reverend Dottie Boone, she says, hi, I'm Dottie Boone, and we're going to be friends. And we've been friends since that moment on. About that time, I met Reverend Janet Childs and Reverend Dr. Janet Childs. And she, from that moment on, we've been friends. One Sunday, a little woman on a motorcycle walked up to me and asked me who was the pretty blonde. And I said, her name's Janet. She said, introduce me to the pretty blonde. That woman's name is the Reverend President Corey Gott of the UCM. We, going back to being an African American, we were brought to this country without any spirituality. We were brought to this country as being maybe 1/3 a human being. We were treated as workhorses. Abraham Lincoln decided to sign something called the Emancipation Proclamation. Emancipation Proclamation came along and allowed us to work on being free. I use the term work on being free because if you look in the political realm right now, as a matter of fact, last week in the state of Tennessee, in the House in the state of Tennessee, one of the gentlemen in the House suggested that we should bring back lynching in this country. I'm not being political. I'm being eye-opening. Because if we don't pay attention to what's going on, what happened will happen again. The Black church, because we were looking for something spiritual that we could serve a God, we started doing that. And the white church and the Black church did not church together. During the time of slavery, one white person was sent to the Black church that was around them to make sure that the conversation that was going on in that church meeting wasn't talking against slavery. And if they did, maybe their church would have gotten burned down. Maybe they would have been maybe something would have happened to the pastor, or maybe something would have happened to somebody else to scare them enough to where that this would not happen again. These are literal things that has happened. One thing that I have said at UCM, and I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but the most prejudiced time of the week is Sunday morning between 9 and 11. Do you know why that's the most prejudiced time in the week? Between 9 and 11 on Sunday mornings, the Catholics go to the Catholic Church. The Assemblies of God go to the Assembly Church. The Black people go to the Black Church. The Hispanics go to the Hispanic Church. You don't even do that at work. When you go to work, it doesn't matter who you work next to, you work with them. But we have the audacity to want to separate God into these different spaces. in the 1960s, I believe it was, in one town in the South, there was two colleges. There was a black college and a white college. And they had basketball teams, and they had the best in the country from both races. They wanted to play each other and wasn't allowed to. So what they did was one Sunday morning between 9 and 11, they got together and played that basketball game. The reason for that was because everybody was going to be in their prospective place at that time. So that was the best time for them to play and people not be hurt and not be burned and not be lynched. We have come a long way. UCM, we have come a long way. When I walked into UCM, I walked in and UCM welcomed me with their arms open. When I walked into UCM, I wasn't seen as a Black man. I was seen as Ronnie. And I looked at you as individuals, the individuals that you are. Our government is still looking at me differently as it looks at you. I have to speak to people differently still because of the color of my skin. I have to be careful at what I say because of the color of my skin, because it can be misconstrued. Sunday mornings, we all get up and we all get ourselves together and we all go to church. What is said, even in our churches, I have to watch what I say. Because there are ministers, there are Caucasian ministers of our faith that is always put in a different space because of what they say. We that are children of God should walk like we're children of God. Yes, should talk like we're children of God. And if there's things that are said in spirit, sometimes can get us into trouble. Martin Luther King said, "I had a dream." And that made somebody mad. The Black church has disowned a lot of us because of our sexuality, just like the Caucasian church has. It has attacked us for being who we are. In a lot of ways, we are different, and in a lot of ways, we are alike. I am really glad to be a part of this board because it gives me a chance to show that I can do the things that I am sent here to do. How many of you, this is a question, represent who you are, no matter where you go? This is one thing that I think about all the time. One time, the Reverend Dottie Boone was in the hospital, and I was one of the people that was blessed enough that she let come into her room. So I went to visit her, and on my way out, I spotted a couple of Hispanic people crying. I didn't know what they were crying for. It wasn't my business to know what they were crying for. My business at that moment was to pray with them. I took the time out of my day, psychologically put on my clergy collar, and had one of them, they didn't, or maybe one or two of them spoke English, and they had just lost a relative. So I psychologically put my clerical collar on. And I came out to them and I told them, well, I'm a minister and all I can do is pray with you. So the one that could spoke English, I prayed and they translated. I was at work at the Golden One Center. The Golden One Center is the basketball center for the Sacramento Kings. And the lady and the woman that I work with was complaining, oh, I got to take care of my grandchildren. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. My children are this and my children are that. And I says, well, she said, pray with me. I stopped what I was doing. I psychologically put my clergy collar on. And I grabbed her and I says, can I hold your hand? She said yes. And I prayed with her. This is our job. We can stand in pulpits, we can stand on platforms, we can stand on stages, and that's good and well. But my job, first and foremost, is to be a light. This is what the King James Version says. It says, "Let your light so shine before us that they may see your good works and glorify your parent in heaven." Our job is to be that light. Our job, not only to stand in the light, but be that light. The light that burns out everything that is not right. God, I don't like to use the word need. But in my eyesight, we need to stand together, because if we don't, a lot of things will happen around us that we're not ready for. I'm not ready for a child to go to school with a gun and shoot his teacher. I'm not ready for that. What I am ready for is being the light, so somebody could see that child before that child finds that gun. Be that light. The reason that I am at UCM and I can't leave UCM is because somebody in UCM needs to see me. Is somebody seeing you? Is somebody looking at you? Is somebody concentrating on you? And when they concentrate on you, it's not because they're concentrating on you, it's because they see something different in you. And when you see something different in somebody, you gravitate toward that. That's what bugs do to light. They gravitate to it. That's our job, to gravitate people toward the light. And the only way we could do that is to let our light shine. Whether it's the African American church, whether it's the Caucasian church, whether it's a Hispanic church. But first of all, we have to be a church. We have to be able to do what Spirit has sent us here to do. And are we doing it? Or are we hiding our light? You know what happens when you hide a light? Put a fire under your mattress and you'll see. Because that light's going to shine anyway. It may burn your mattress up, it may burn your house down, but that light is going to shine. And once that light is lit, you can't put it out. I don't want to put my light out. I want people to know that I'm there. I want people to know that I am a different human being. I'm a different human being than I was 18 years ago. And 18 years ago was when I picked up my last alcoholic beverage and the last thing that was coming between me and my spiritual self. And when they see that, I tell them, you know what I tell them? That's because I've worked hard on me and I've let God work hard on me. This is some of the things that the African American church has taught me. Taught me not to be ashamed of who I am.
Amen, Ronnie. I just invite us all to take a nice deep breath and to breathe in what you just said, to breathe that into our heart, to breathe that into our spirit and into our lives. And can you tell us, Ronnie, how does the African American church do this? Can you share some of the specifics? What you found?
The African American church has been through so much. We've decided, the African American church decided, what else can they do?
Oh, no.
When some of us have done things that y'all didn't like and ended up in trees. As Billie Holiday called it, strange fruit. Some of us have been run over by cars. Some of us have been drugged by trucks. Four children in Alabama was bombed in church. Dr. King had a bomb thrown at his house. Medgar Evers was shot in front of his children for speaking out and being truthfully who he is. What else can you do to me? But my duty is still to not only be an example to the people that are around me, but to be a light to people that are around me. Remember, the bugs always go to the light. Our job is to be that light. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. Thank you so much. Are you willing now, or would you like to open it up to discussion?
Yes.
To questions?
Yes.
Yes. To comments? Yes, Mary.
We can't hear her.
Unmute her.
She's still not being heard.
There you go.
Ronnie, I was in the South for a while. It was a very painful time in our life. And I wondered at the time how difficult it was to come here as a slave from different portions of Africa who would have different religious practices, and then that they were able to draw this communal love of Christianity when they were being treated so badly by Christians. Is there any discussion of that in the Black church, or do they just believe that they felt like the one thing they got when they came was an understanding of the potential of the Christ light? Or I have just always wondered. Thank you.
We were always taught that there is a God, and that God will rescue us from that situation. That God, like God gave Moses to the Israelites. Right. God gave people like Martin Luther King to the African American community. God gave people like Malcolm X to the African American community. I mention those two people because even though they had two different ways of seeing freedom, they saw freedom.
Thank you, Ronnie.
You're welcome.
Beautifully said and beautifully answered. Yes, Joan.
Unmute yourself, Joan.
This past week with the trouble in Tennessee and the two young men speaking so profoundly and so gloriously that we have a new generation coming forward that understands how to move forward. They handled the problems in their expulsion and their reinstatement so beautifully, and I was so proud to watch them and and watch them carry it with dignity. I think the Black church teaches that dignity that is so profound and so inspirational. And thank you for sharing, Ronnie. I enjoyed your talk so much.
Thank you. I watched those two young men also, and I watched them with pride. Number one was the people who put them through that are people who don't like change. And if we don't change for the better and stay where we are, fruit trees change all the time, and if they didn't change all the time, we'd never have fruit. There's a time when the tree looks dead, but then at a certain time, that tree brings forth apples, brings forth oranges, brings forth all the things that it's supposed to bring forth. Those two young men were the men that they were supposed to be, and they were in the place where they were supposed to be, and they were the light that they are supposed to be. I was so proud of them. I don't know what to do. And they stood with class and with pride. That was good.
It was truly a beautiful moment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for reminding it of us and what we can do to lend our energy to give them the strength to do it in such a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ronnie, what I think about the Black church that is so amazing is the music that they've brought to our country.
Yes.
The music that is coming out all over the place. And the fact that it's like in the African families, they do things musically, even when they're doing chores or they're doing various things. There's a rhythm in their life
Yes.
that quite often is completely missing in a Caucasian household.
Yes.
You know, and it's so great to see people who have been raised with music, with rhythm, with a connection, even though we don't like the fact that they were brought here against their will, but that connection to Mother Africa is always heard and always seen bits of it in the music that they bring forth, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've said, in the town that I grew up in, my family went to a church in that town, and my family wasn't in the church choir. My family was the church choir. So, it's important that we remember. It's important that I remember Sarah Stanton and Joe Grigsby, because those two people are the reason why I am here. If I didn't remember them, then their life could be in vain because I didn't remember them.
Right.
And even though they have been gone for quite a while, sometimes I hear them in the back of my head. My father's been gone for over 20 years, and we still talk because of the things that he taught me. My mother's been gone for almost 10 years. There are things that she taught me that I still hear. There's something wrong with the parent if they don't, if after they leave, their child don't remember what they did.
Ronnie, is the Bible a big part of the church service in the Black church?
Yes, it is. David said, "Thy word have I hidden in my heart that I might not sin against thee." These are things that the Black church talks about. Remember, we came with nothing. We didn't even have the clothes on our backs when we came here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty rough to say, but that's the truth. We were property. We weren't even human beings as far as this country was concerned. Remember, I mentioned and I said, and I did this on purpose. When Black people had church, there was a white person in the church service to make sure that nothing was said bad against slavery.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I heard about that was that sometimes then the Black church would develop a code, so they could talk about somebody perhaps who was escaping or somebody who was doing something but the quote overseer, the church overseer that was sent there to snoop, wouldn't understand what was going on. Is that your understanding, Ronnie?
Yes, ma'am. That's how African that was one of the staples of the African American Negro spiritual.
I see Reverend Joyce C. raising her hand on that one.
Yeah, there you go. So, hey, Ronnie.
Hey, sweetheart.
Uh-huh. Sometimes we say, there it is. And you brought up so many memories that I was sitting here back down there in Mississippi, going down that road with my patent leather shoes on to church.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to church.
Church.
I was going to church.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was the head usher.
Mm-hmm.
And she took that position very strong. And everything was always in order. I remember all of this. I also remember my father most profoundly as well. And my father, I wanted to go back to the idea of how you communicated messages to run for freedom. Because you didn't walk for freedom, you ran for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And my father told me about a song now my father was born in 1898. So, that's not too long after the emancipation.
That's
and
right.
He was down in what we used to call Mount Bayou down in there,
Mm-hmm.
where my mother was born in 1921.
Mm-hmm.
He was part Choctaw and Black. And that's important to understand because Black folks and natives bonded. Sometimes the escaping was to go into a native community and they would not allow for the white folks to come take you back.
Yes, ma'am.
But what my father said was, the song told you what to do, and the words, there was always a word that the enslaved people knew the meaning of that single word, and the word was mile.
Mm-hmm.
Melee.
Mile. And when that word was said,
Melee.
mile, way over yonder on that hill,
Mm-hmm.
mile, that told you that you were going to run that night
Mhm.
We're going to run to the farthest hill because that's where freedom was.
Mhm.
And usually where some white folks was waiting in wagons with special cutout with places you could crawl in sometimes and hide, or they
Mhm.
would take over the border. And I remembered all of that. I was thinking of that when you were sharing, Ronnie, and I said to myself, I'm back down there in Mississippi.
Mhm.
And I was also remembering what you said about family coming to talk to you. And I have a very profound relationship with my siblings for the most part. And my parents have been with me ever since their transitions,
Oh,
guiding me, teaching me, helping me, showing me things that was amazing to believe and understand. And this is a different aspect on Black spirituality that has a traditional feel of what it means to be African, because this is a part of the African tradition.
Yes.
Your ancestors didn't just die.
No.
No, they were there teaching you generation to generation. And as Ronnie's pointed out, and then you get it passed on.
Mhm.
And then you pass it on the best you can to someone that you can give that information to. So there's so many wonderful things here. Thank you for helping me to remember some of them so profound.
My mother was a very prophetic woman,
Mm.
and we were having class in my ministry studies, and I asked Dottie if there was a difference between a prophet and a psychic. And Dottie told me, I asked her, what was the difference between a prophet and a psychic? And Dottie Boone told me, nothing, absolutely nothing. So my mother, whether she knows it or not, was psychic.
Mhm.
And she could tell you, and she would tell us sometimes, don't do that. You don't want to do that. We didn't know why she said that. And she wasn't sure why she said that. But as far as she knew, Spirit had spoken to her and told her to tell us that we couldn't do that. And usually when she said that, something really left field happened.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you would ask, well, Mom, how did you know that? She said, well, the Lord told me.
Mhm.
Got it.
And that was what she knew.
Yes.
What a direct connection. What a direct connection.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Joyce.
Hey, your mama and my mama probably knew each other or something because it was the same way. And if she said, don't do it, you regretted it.
Mhm.
And she was very powerful with her ability to see
Very powerful.
the ancestors walking amongst us.
Mhm.
She saw them. Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing. This is a very fascinating evening.
It is rich with the weavings of different traditions, and it is so good to weave that fabric tight.
Yes, it is. I'd like to tell you something that's related to what Ronnie is talking about.
Please do.
Yeah. My father, he passed on June 10th, 1972. And that was a very profound time. That was 3 days after my birthday. And he and I were very close. And he was the one who had a lovely singing voice. And he would sing a lot when he told us about what was going to happen. I didn't see my father's return to me for many years. About 4 actually, 4 years. And he came to me and he took me out on a like a balcony that did not exist where I was living, but I'm standing on a balcony. And he showed me the future. He wanted me to see something. He wanted me to see two things. That which no one wanted to believe that was true was spaceships. And then he wanted me to see where the spaceships were going. And I stood out there the most beautiful night. And I am watching these ships fly by, and they would stop. Some was about as big as a Frisbee. And some were bigger, like a Volkswagen. And some were like the hugest plane you've ever seen. And they would all come through and slow up so I could see them. And I felt their presence. And he said, now then, Joyce, see. Trust what you see. I said, yes, Daddy. And to this day, I trust what I see. You may not see it, but I see it. And I trust it. And that was a part of I believe, what we inherited from our African ancestors. And it got passed on to my daddy. It got passed on to my mother, to my mama. And nearly everyone in our family had some sort of gift, but most were afraid of it because they didn't know quite what to do with it. And they were trying to be regular people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was hard to be regular people when you were seeing the end of life, your own life, your dad, your mom, and all of this. And there I was feeling so alone because I'm seeing all of these things and I'm getting the visions of their deaths and everything was happening. And yet I'm here.
Yes, you are.
And we are so glad you are with us.
I have
Yes.
a question. Ronnie,
Yes,
does the Black Church practice forgiveness for the sins placed upon them by the white racism?
We have to.
Yeah, to move forward, you have
To
to.
move forward, we have to. Remember, I was talking, I spoke of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually preaching the same message
yes, they were.
from two different points at the same time. But you had to kind of dig through one of them to see the other one's message. There was also a man named Stokely Carmichael,
Mhm.
who at the same time had the same message, but he brought it from a different point of view. Stokely Carmichael's message dealt with guns and whatnot. Martin Luther King dealt with total peace.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stopped to listen to what they said, if you stopped to listen to what the Reverend Farrakhan says, there's a reason why he says it. In his spirit, he hasn't learned how to look at a person and forgive them because he's experienced some things. I don't have to do that because I have not experienced what he's experienced. He's been burned by the fire. I stood on the outside of the fire and got warm. There's the difference. With the help of God, I will never know what the inside of a prison looks like. But he's been there.
So when we're talking about the Black Church, we're talking about the Black Christian Church, not the Black Muslim Church.
We're talking about the Black church, period.
Mhm.
Okay.
The Muslims got there because Dr. King preached nonviolence. And maybe some of the Muslims don't believe that. We all, if somebody came at me with a knife, I would do everything I can to protect myself. Somebody came at Mr. Little with a knife and with prison, and he went to prison, and he did what he had to. He did what he had to do to survive in prison. While he was in prison, he met the Muslims, and he learned the Muslim teaching. You know who Mr. Little was?
Levon.
No. Mr. Little became Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
Oh,
How he got through prison was through the Muslim faith. Yes, ma'am.
He had
interesting.
a time in which UCM was connected more to Islamic Church in Sunnyvale. In fact, I still am on their mailing list. And that most Islam, as much as I understand it, is just as loving as Christianity. There's, just like there are crazy people in Christianity, there are people who think the only way to live in their Muslim faith is in a warrior state. But basically, the women they would cook, and when I got sick one time, they came over and brought me soup. And it's like it was the same loving kindness that we offer to each other. So
Interesting.
I have to remind myself of that. But
Absolutely.
that's our experience with them, and they enjoyed getting to know UCM.
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful connection. And still is. So absolutely. I mean, that is
no
the
matter
magic.
no matter who you call God, no matter who you call God in spirit, it's still God.
Mhm.
I said one more thing, and then I'll mute myself for the rest of the day.
No, you do not have to mute yourself.
One of the things I observed when we were in North Carolina during a very painful time in our life, and they wanted you to go to their church. The white people would come to us and say, how were we and what were we doing? And did we have a church yet? And then they wanted us to go with them. And what I observed in the South is that the white churches separated themselves by intellectual ideas about what was the right path and who was telling them the right things to do, the Baptist versus the whoever. And my observation of Black churches is that they were so heart-centered, not head-centered, that they connected without any regard as to whether they were Baptist or some other faith. Does that make sense to you, Ronnie?
Yes.
I'm going to mute myself.
It's not only a racial thing. It's also a religious thing. You know, if you don't believe like I believe, and this is what most churches get hung up on. If you don't believe like I believe, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
I usually look at them and say, well, first, for you to send me there, I'd have to believe in it. I think this is hell enough. I think we're already in hell. When one man could tie another man to the back of a pickup truck and drag him, we're already in hell. When a child can bring a gun to school and shoot his teacher, we're already in hell.
Or a child's mother comes and shoots a teacher.
Yeah.
Mm.
And,
Hey, Ronnie, can we talk a little bit more about the music? You know, me and you and music. I was amazed. We've been having problems at CCL of not being able to sing a lot of songs because they're not in public domain. And I looked up spiritual songs that you can sing because they were written before 1908. And the outstanding one was Amazing Grace. And I thought, wow, I have to tell my Ronnie that because he recorded Amazing Grace on a CD we put out, and it's one of his favorite songs. And to know the next time you show up at CCL, you've got a song you can sing.
Well, do we all know that? Do we all know the story behind Amazing Grace?
Oh, yes. But tell it, Ronnie, tell it. It's an amazing story.
A gentleman by the name of John Hanson. John Hanson was an interesting person. He, in his early life, he was the captain of a slave ship, which brought sugar and other things to Africa and sold that for Africans to bring to America. And he did that for a while. Well, he had a spiritual awakening. And in his spiritual awakening, he laid down and went to sleep, I suppose, and dreamed and got up and wrote, "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saves a wretch like me." He became a minister. He called himself a wretch. A wretch would do something like trade a human life for money. How wretched can you do? How wretched can you be to do something like that? So that's how that song came about.
It's an amazing legacy that it leaves every time it is sung.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And now every time it's sung, his relatives don't get profits from it.
No.
Now in the public domain. Yeah. But for a while, it was very, very important that people sing it in church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, Ronnie, along with song, which is so powerful and such an incredible gathering of spirits, can gather a community together faster than anything. Also, the use of biblical verse, which I've noticed happens a lot. Like you said, using primarily the King James Version, right?
Mm-hmm.
But using the biblical verse to get messages across and through.
Even it's amazing because even the people who want to hurt you will hurt you in the name of the biblical verse. That amazes me.
Yeah.
Even some of the things that Dr. King said. The people who want to hurt me will use Dr. King's words. And that isn't what those words meant, but they will use them.
Mm-hmm. So, Reverend Ronnie, what can the Black church teach us? What do we need to learn?
You see him? The Black church can teach you endurance. The Black church can teach you how to shine. The Black church can teach you and me that it isn't the church. It isn't the brick and mortar place. That is not the church. Where the church is in your heart, in your chest, in your mind, in your heart of hearts. Where your light shines from is where the church is. That's right.
I would just like to say that
We couldn't hear you.
that I learned growing up that what we learned in the church down in Mississippi, Clarksdale, outside of Clarksdale, we learned about service and sharing. every winter, my family, we were sharecroppers, farmers. And we canned, had
Yes,
a
ma'am.
stock of all kinds of wonderful stuff. It was amazing the food we had. But there were families whose men folk and sometimes the women folk couldn't because they had so many babies, they were exhausted, they were weak. And so my mother would put together a social basket. It was never called a picnic basket. Can't take that word. We had a social basket
Mhm.
that we took to the mothers and the children, knowing the fathers would get to eat also. But the focus was you take this to Miss So-and-so,
Mhm.
and that Miss Hale, you know, Miss Boyd, whomever, I was to take it to. And if the weather was too cold, then one of my brothers took it or my daddy. And so we would help those families. That was part of the church. That was part of our church. Compassion, service, helping others. You didn't blame somebody. You didn't trash them. You knew a lot, but what you were doing was helping the family through not only the winter, we did those baskets during the summer and the spring, the whole year. The service was given weekly. And that was something I grew up seeing even when we moved to Santa Barbara, California. My father was retired then. They told him he was too old to get a job. And so he would go around and help the neighbors, especially where there weren't men in the house, to mow their lawns and help them with this and help them with that. And then he just got to be this wonderful friend to so many people because no one else was doing this.
Mhm.
And here comes this ex-farmer Black man, big fellow, good size, and walking around, very social, very caring, offering service. And he had also once been a deacon in the church and a mason. He used to tell me little bits of this and that. And I bring all of that up is because this is about what we can do to help others to also have endurance and also to help them to have some peace and to bring some light into their lives as well. We
Mhm.
learned that in the midst of everything that was happening to us as a people, to share.
Mhm.
You didn't let somebody go hungry and act like you didn't see it.
Mm-mm.
You did not. It did not. Then, as she herself has said, and still I rise. Yes.
Mm,
And still,
yes.
We find that the little things we do can become big things. That's just if we do them. If we share with each other, if I have, with the idea that if I have 2 eggs and you have 1, if I have 2 slices of bacon, you have 1,
yep,
then nobody starves.
yep. That's true.
So that building of community and
Yes.
actually reaching out in a practical survival way, with the loving spirit of your light,
That's right.
bringing it and calling it a social basket,
Mm-hmm.
not calling it something else or calling it a
A
this
pig
is
and
what,
egg basket.
right, exactly. That is so powerful because it equalizes. It's like at any time, I'm maybe supporting you now, but you'll be supporting me.
Yes. And gladly.
Gladly, and no shame.
That's right.
Dignity. Yeah. So that weaving together of community is so powerful.
Yes. I appreciate you all letting me share this thing with you, and you all sharing with me. This is so dynamic, so cool, so wonderful that we can share with each other.
Ronnie, I wanted to, sorry, I think I just interrupted someone. Yeah,
Go
Ronnie,
ahead,
I-
Ms. Patty. Go ahead.
I wanted to thank you, Ronnie. It's really a very beautiful talk. It's filled with deep wisdom. And what I find really fascinating is that given the history, given how your people came in chains, and you look at the depth of the spirit that has survived and continues to survive and continues to move forward, it's really profound. And so you've brought that out in this talk. And it's a lovely teaching, and it's a lovely realization of the power of spirit, the power of people, of really a very deep connection within themselves. And they came together as a group, as a community, as a people. And they've come forward. And yes, we've got, let's see, how can I put this politely? Some really crazy things happening right now
Mhm.
that continue to resist that. And yet the light continues to shine.
Mhm.
And yet the people continue to just move forward. And some beautiful, beautiful teachings that you brought tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But now that we know that songs can be sung, as long as they're older spiritual songs, what's the chances, man? You think you might give us a round or two of Amazing Grace?
Who, me?
Sure don't want me.
It's not going to be Dottie Boone.
Mr. Grigsby, yes, sir.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Ronnie.
Amazing.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Every Sunday morning at 10:30, y'all know I'm thinking about you
Oh,
and wishing that sometimes I was there. Easter I had San Jose flashbacks.
yeah, yeah.
Because if I were there, you know where I'd be. So, because love has not died here.